And that's one reason I want
All right,
Cedric.
we're going live, guys, right now.
All right.
Welcome, Facebook and YouTube. This is Jim Blythe. This is the Veterans Impact Show. Joining me, two very close friends. We're going to have a great program talking about focusing on the family. Here we go, right now to broadcast. Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where we continue the mission of highlighting veterans and service organizations who continue to serve our community and our nation. We're brought to you by Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Don't worry, retire happy. Welcome aboard. Hey, what a great day. And for my Jewish brothers and sisters, starting last night was Rosh Hashanah. So thank you so much and bless you. And thank you for being on board today. I've got two phenomenal guests. We've got a tremendous topic and a tremendous program. You're going to want to stay on board for this one. But first of all, I want to thank the DBTV Network and Amazon Fire and Roku for carrying us nationwide. We're going to be carried at 10 o'clock this week, and we're 9 o'clock every day on every Saturday from now on with DBTV. And that's important. We're also with the AUN out in California, and we're so thankful for those guys as well. I want to say a word. I work for Fairway Independent Mortgage, specializing in reverse, and my NMLS number is 311-848-548, and theirs is 2289. So we've covered that. Keep the attorneys happy. Now, let me introduce two really great friends. First of all, I'd like to introduce Travis Wortham. I've known Travis for probably close to 30 plus years.
That's good.
And I volunteered to teach a program that I developed with his input on planning to change for teenage boys coming out of the Texas juvenile detention system. Travis was superintendent of the house. His resume is a who's who, as far as I'm concerned, in working with the juvenile system. He's got a BA in political science. He's got a master's in counseling. He's a counselor. He's an author. He's got a fabulous book. I can't say enough about this man, and I couldn't go on except use all of the program to be able to talk about all the accolades he's received from the governor, the mayor, etc. When it comes to understanding young men and women in crisis and in the juvenile problem area, Travis Wortham is number one in my book in the United States. Number two today is a very new friend, which I have been amazed, and he's been on here with us. And I'm sorry I've got this problem, so I'm going to take a deal. But Cedric White, Cedric, you are a minister. You and your wife started a fabulous, successful relationship. Tell us a little bit about your foundation and what you do and what you teach. And I want to show your book as well.
All right. Well, our organization is Healing Thine Hearts. It started over 23 years ago, and it was actually birthed out of the pain that both Michelle and I suffered due to divorce. We saw and understood the literal tragedy that broken families cause. And we see it. We have 3 children, we have 10 grandchildren, and we see the effects of divorce, broken families, dysfunction within the families, literally down to the 3rd generation. And since I came through military, very proud of my Navy career. I've been involved with first responders, and in church, I see on a daily basis the effect that broken relationships, that misguided relationships, that dysfunctional relationships have. So Michelle and I have set out to assist couples, individuals in building better relationships and thereby strengthening families, which our country needs.
Without a doubt. And Travis, in what you do, you're working with families and you're working with young men and women, primarily young men, I think, in helping them turn their lives around. The two of you guys dovetail together, and that's why I introduced you. And I think this is important. let me go a step further in saying right now, today, and I think everyone would agree, we've got more negativity. We've got more divorce. We've got the highest divorce rate we've ever had. We've got more juvenile delinquency. We've got more suicide. We've got more mental health problems. We have a looming mess of the fabric of our nation that is coming apart. And in many, many, many cases, we've got unconscionable percentages of single parent family.
Yes.
It doesn't work. And it's proving out not to work. It's proving out on the 6 o'clock news. So I wanted to bring you guys to the forefront and talk about this because you're both veterans. Travis, you're a veteran with the juvenile justice system, and Cedric, you're a Navy veteran. So in this, which is so important, first of all, what do you guys think is the number one reason we have such a breakdown in the family? Travis, would you like to start with that?
Yes, indeed. Family and marriage are God's idea.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we do it his way, it doesn't work. I told someone the other day, marriage is not for kids. It is a tough work. And when we bring the baggage that we do from our different families into a relationship, we'll start it out with an issue. And if God is not at the forefront and the mediator of all that we do, our chances of survival are very slim. I've done so much research on serial killers and mass murderers, teen mass murderers, and the violent kids in the juvenile system in Texas. And what I can tell you all, there's a direct correlation between all three where there's not much difference in the practices and families that's at the core of it. And I've had to deal with it from every perspective at all. My whole mission right now is building godly men because we are at the core of it, Jim. God's order place us head of the household. When that is usurped, when we fail our responsibilities, there are so many things that contribute to the failure of our children generationally, and I know Cedric is talking about that in his book.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And Cedric, in your book and what we've talked about, you're going to be doing a Bible study in January.
Yes.
And you said it's not just for married. I want to catch people before they get married. Here's one of the biggest problems that I see. So many times we see that perfect person and we jump in and we don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
As a result, we don't have enough time with them. We haven't talked with them enough. We don't know all of the truth. Therefore, there's a big trust factor. I just mentioned your 4 T's.
Right.
Because your book is so phenomenal. Both of these books, I got to tell you, we're going to tell you how to get them. So without a doubt, the dysfunction in the home starts before the marriage even happens.
Exactly.
Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree 100%. Jim, as you refer to that book, God gave, not only did he give me that book, but he gave us the example literally at the beginning of time in Genesis. When we read about God preparing and creating, speaking into existence, everything that was there, God was literally taking the time to prepare for a relationship with mankind. He was taking the time to do it. And when he created Adam and Eve, then he started talking to them and spending that time, and he gave them the truth. Spent time, gave them the truth. And it only takes one person in a relationship to break the trust. As long as truth exists in a relationship, trust grows and grows and grows and flourishes. The problem is, back to the basics. I think that's the biggest problem that we have. We've got to get back to the basics. Travis was talking about that. I played football, right? And we always found out we had one team here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex that beat everybody. And they didn't have flashy plays. They didn't have all the trick plays, but they blocked better, they tackled better, they executed, they did the work. And if we could get people back to the basics of understanding, just because you're cute, just because you're pretty, does not mean that's a great relationship. We can have fun together, but the question is, can we build a life together? And most people don't stop to grasp that information.
Absolutely. I am living proof of it. And let me tell you, one of the things is it only takes a slip of the tongue. It only takes a word before all truth comes through and all trust is broken.
That's right.
And that is a serious problem. We don't know. Thoughts held in mind produce in kind. Frustrations bring things to the surface. And so we need to learn how to talk, but most of all, we need to learn, in many cases, how to keep our mouth shut. How to forgive.
Yeah.
You guys agree? Or
I agree with all of that. And Jim, I wanted to add, just piggybacking on Cedric's comments. In my book, there's a chapter called Scarred from the Start, and it deals with this exact subject matter. One of the stories that I talk about in the book is a young lady who came within inches of being killed by her fiance. And before they got married, before they had become fiancés, he had told all about what a spiritual man he was. And after they got deep into their relationship, she never saw him even say a prayer over a meal anymore. Never went to church anymore. So obviously, if we don't get it up front right, then we are doomed for failure. And we're talking about it generationally, not just what the damage we do to our kids, but the damage we are doing to our grandkids, because we're setting a precedent as to how we go forward in relationships.
Exactly.
And let me tell you, I'm going to depart from that just a little bit. When you're talking about relationships, it's not always just the family. Many times it's business, community. These things boil over. One of the things that I have heard statistics that are all over the board is the number of predominantly women, but a number of children that have been abused by their parents, either sexually, physically, mentally, emotionally, to the point Child Protective Services should have been called by the age of 14. I've heard the statistic as high as 3 out of 4. Many people say, oh, it's 1 out of 4. I got to tell you, it's huge, and we're disproportionate in the mistakes that we're making and the things that are being said. I think if everybody was forced to read the book of Proverbs in the Bible, not from a religious standpoint, but from just an educational standpoint, they'd go, whoa, how about this?
Right. And I would say, in adding to that, Jim, not just reading it, but the applicability. I need to apply it. Right. I said it like this. I was in the pulpit. I was in church. I've been in church all my life, but I still suffered the devastation of divorce. Why? Because it takes 2 people to make a relationship work. It only takes 1 to make it fail. And so both people have to be in. Travis said it. Marriage, relationships are work. We're in a society now where a lot of people, they come into a relationship and all the emotions are high, right? The emotions and everybody, the butterflies are flying and the hummingbirds are buzzing and the rainbow is there and the music is playing. And like Travis said, you present that at first, but we need to take the time to find out, how is that person when they're hungry? How is that person when they're upset? How is that person in a family environment? How is that person when they are unemployed? How is that person when things aren't going their way? And then, am I willing to? We ask 2 questions, and then I'll shut up. We ask 2 questions when couples come to us and they're having issues, and it seems to be just insurmountable. There seems to be irreconcilable differences. The question is, listen, do you believe the issues that that person has, do you believe those issues are going to change? And if they don't change, can you live with that person for the rest of your life in this relationship? And we tell you answer it. And when you answer that, then you do what you feel like you need to do.
Without a doubt. And the thing of it is that question typically doesn't get asked when you're in the beginning part of the relationship, when you're talking about butterflies and rock and roll.
That's
without a doubt. And here's another factor. I think a lot of times we don't understand some of the underlying mental health issues. I was in a city in Oklahoma yesterday working with a family, and all of a sudden, and her son has been incarcerated, and all of a sudden I found out he's taking a medication, he's bipolar. This goes way back. When I was in the Navy, and Cedric, you can talk about this, there were a number of men who had served in World War II in combat and had PTS, something fierce. And they were functional alcoholics. They were self-medicating. A lot of times there are genetic problems, chemical problems, imbalances, bipolar depression, whatever. If you don't treat it, or if you're not upfront about it, and we all working together, then it's a time bomb. But when we do understand it, when we do work together, then those issues can be mitigated. Those issues can be basically turned around and be supportive, and that can work.
Right.
Travis, you agree?
I agree wholeheartedly. There's so much, and this is my message right now to young people. And Cedric, you'll love this. When I talk to young girls, especially teenagers, I say, and they're in a relationship with a young man, I say, you want to know how your boyfriend or your husband is going to treat you down the road? Go to his home and see his relationship with his mother.
Yes.
If he is disrespectful, if he is unhelpful, or whatever those dynamics are, you can guarantee. Now, if he's loving towards her, supportive towards her, respectful, honorable, that's probably how he's going to treat you. But if he's the opposite.
You know, guys, this is so important. And I want our audience to know we're going to continue this conversation after a word from all of our partners who help us. This is the Veterans Impact Show. But most important today, we're talking about not just veterans, but the community as a whole, because veterans lead the way. We have always led the way. And I got to tell you, I've got two of the greatest veterans I've ever met in my life, in Travis Wortham, veteran of the Texas Juvenile Justice System, and Cedric White, U.S. Navy shipmate. I got to tell you, you learn a lot. And if we know and understand the truth can set us free. So we'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. This is the Veterans Impact Show for you. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Guys, I want to talk about for just a second, because suicide is so prevalent right now, that part of the problem with that, I think, again, is abuse in the home. And what little I've seen, abuse tends to be generational. And yet these can be turned around. These can be changed. This is a behavior modification. And the greatest example that I know of is I listen to Joyce Myers every morning for an upbeat message. And she repeatedly talks about her abuse as a child and how it affected her for many years. And she talks about her marriage to Dave and how he just really worked with her and helped her and was unconditional love and understanding. There's so much in the dynamics of that. And I think Joyce Meyer is one of the biggest examples in our nation of a person who overcame that abuse. I mean, she should have been a rockin' crazy woman. Instead, she's one of a worldwide ministry to bring people together. Now, again, Travis, how do we deal with, or how have you seen from a juvenile justice system dealing with some of the abuse situations? How do they handle that, if I may ask?
Well, one thing I can tell you, Jim, when I was in my counseling master's program, the one group of clientele that I wanted to focus my attention on was sex offenders. That was intentional. And the reason it was intentional, because in counseling with someone with that type of addiction, just when you think you've made some progress, like peeling an onion, there are multiple more layers under there. And that comes from what I talk about in my book as generational curses. The stuff we bring into marriages from our childhood, both consciously and subconsciously, as to how we deal with everything going on in our families, and especially conflict. Most kids that I've dealt with who were sex offenders were themselves sexually abused multiple times over and over again. And yes, there is treatment for young sex offenders, and many of them are very capable of recovering from the damage that was done to them. But what I also learned over the years, there were some who were so damaged, even as juveniles, that the way back was going to be a very difficult task that would have required almost a lifetime of intervention.
So without a doubt, one of the biggest things I've always said is you've got to be focused on constantly understanding and solving that problem. And if you're not truthful when you go into a relationship and say, I've got this problem, and I want to deal with it. I want to go to Celebrate Recovery. I want to go to Al-Anon. I want to go to AA. All of these things help. All of these things can bring a positive outcome. It's not a death sentence. And Travis, you're right. It's a lot of work. And Cedric, you put couples on this path to understanding. That's why you talk about talk. That's why you talk about truth. And you're right. How many couples do I know where they got married? Oh, I want to do this. Oh, I want to do that. And the day they get married, that's the last time it's ever done.
Exactly. When we talk about truth, the biggest issue is that most people aren't willing to face the real truth in their lives. Quite often, truth is not comfortable. Truth is ugly. Truth is can be horrible. The things that and if I share that with this person, this potential mate of mine, my fear is that they'll not like me or they'll judge me. And quite often that does happen. But the issue, what we find and what we see is, especially from a military perspective, people will run from their homes, join the military to get away from some trauma that they've experienced, right? The military, like you said, Jim, the military is their coping mechanism, and I can drink, right? And it's acceptable for me to drink as long as I can do my job. It's acceptable in the military. The problem is we talk about boots on and boots off, right? How I operate with my boots on is one thing. How I operate with my boots off and with my family and within my church and in my community is something totally different. And when I can't separate the two, there comes a huge disruption in my family, in my life, in my relationship, because I've been used to everybody accepting me the way I am on the ship, when I'm deployed, on the base, right? Because we drink, we have fun. But when I come home, when I'm on a regular job, I'm expected to do something else. And because my identity was in my military career, my identity was in my drinking, when I no longer have that identity, guess what? I'm lost. The idea of who I was is now lost. And now I turn to thoughts of suicide because I don't know who I am. I don't know my value. I don't know my worth. And even being a father, being a mother, being a husband, being a wife, it's not enough. They need help with that. And quite often people aren't willing or even able without help to accept the truth about that.
You know, one of the things that I have heard many, many times is being married or being a parent doesn't come with an owner's manual to guide you. But that's not true, because if you read the book of Proverbs, man, let me tell you right there, that one book, which was written, what, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago,
exactly,
says so much in wisdom about what to do. And so what we want to do is continue this conversation where we're focusing on the family, on the military family, the civilian family, because military and veterans lead the way. And we lead the way in every way possible. And we lead the way in saving the family and saving lives. And that's what's important. Yes, we've got a lot of problems in this nation. Yes, we can do something about it. And here are two men who are doing amazing things. Travis Wortham, a very dear friend of mine for over 30 years, and Cedric White, Navy buddy. I got to tell you, we're going to be talking more about focusing on the family and recovery and going down the road the right way. This is Jim Blank with the Veterans Impact Show. We'll be right back after these words from our partners. Thank you. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. I think this is great. This is the real meat of the subject. This is probably for some people a tough conversation to participate in, but that's why we need to have it. That's why we need to be talking about it. And it's important. One of the things that I think, Travis, in your book, you talk about the monster of social media. This is one of the things that's tearing at the fabric of family right now, that I see it all the time. Can you expand on that or give a story about that?
Yes, I can. When you think about TV shows, the music that kids are listening to, and of course, when you go on social media, you're open to the entire world. Imagine how many predators are just lying in wait. You know, that is the evidence of Satan himself. But to radicalize anybody who's dealing with an issue can't wait to soothe your little wounds that you have. And that's why we end up having 30, 40-year-old men reaching out to 13-year-old girls, acting as though they could be their 13-year-old boyfriends, and ended up in sex and human trafficking. It is wide open, Jim, and the impact is beyond words. And I tell you, I can't tell parents enough. You have to monitor every electrical device in your house. And I mean, I told our kids, there's no such thing as having a password on your electrical device in our house. I wanted that phone anytime I wanted it, and I want to look at what they're doing. And as a result of that, we caught some things. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a quick story. And I won't say who, but one of mine had a little stuff going on with another opposite sex and saying some words to each other that they shouldn't have been saying. And I required that person to sit in front of his mother and tell her exactly what he said. And he tried to skirt around the words. I said, no. Let's say exactly what you said. And it resulted in boo-hooing trying to get the words out. We've got to monitor this stuff 24/7.
That's right. Can I add to that, Jim?
Yeah, please. That's why I was going to ask you.
Yeah, we see it on a day-to-day basis. There's so much information out there. I think about the limitations that we had coming up, right? When we talk about, the 3 channels that would go off at 10:30 after the news, right? They played the Star Spangled Banner, and you could watch snow if you wanted to. But now the access is there to literally everything. And we have a saying: you have to monitor what you have to manage, what you manage and monitor what you expect to happen. What Travis has said is right on point, because these kids nowadays, parents think they've done something when they've taken the phones. Kids know how to talk through their tablets. They know how to talk through their laptops. Kids even know how to talk through the television now. We've seen situations where children are able to get out on social media and communicate, and the parents never know. Parents think they talk through their Xboxes and their P3, PS4s, whatever they are. They can communicate on all of these things, and you never know. Travis said it. Who's coming in? So we have to monitor our babies, and our babies don't want it because children want what they want. But we have to understand the level of intelligence as opposed to emotion. And we see a lot of people who come into our office, 30 and 40 and 50 years old, who operate off of emotions. They've never learned to tap into the intellectual side of who God made us. God made us his best creation, mankind, and quite often we still act like animals. We should have our emotions, but we should not be driven by it.
Let me tell you, it takes a lot of training, and we all screw up. I think one of the most important things that we need to remember is, for not only our spouses, but our family, is set the tone and set the example of forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, I have known so many people that really respected their parents and I respected my mom and dad. But yes, I've made mistakes in my life, and I've hurt some people unintentionally. And one of the things in the Bible, it's said in Proverbs and said in the book of James, the tongue is probably the most dangerous muscle in the body, because it can literally, fire off. And sometimes those thoughts held in mind, produced in kind, can come out wrong. And I think that you've got to have forgiveness. You've got to ask for forgiveness. One of the things I see in military people as I hang around, for whatever reason, they don't want to admit they've got a problem, and B, they don't want to accept forgiveness, and C, they frequently don't want to be forgiving. And I think that's important. Travis, in the disciplining of a child, for instance, I think there's got to be a level of intelligence and forgiveness going along that's taught with the disciplining process. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Most definitely. And one thing I talk to parents about all the time is, don't be so proud to not ask for forgiveness from your child.
Amen. Yes.
Because you are setting a pattern that they can use for the rest of their lives. It evolves into mediation, conflict resolution, self-control. When they see you apologize, then they themselves are able to apologize. And here's one thing I'm clear about. When we shoot our arrows at the bullseye, when it comes to raising our children God's way, God expects us to miss the bullseye. But here's what I'm clear about. He will make up the damage because we have been faithful. And beyond that, our children will be forgiven because they have watched us love them, encourage them, direct them, give them those godly principles, and we have put it in their hearts. We put it in the music, in the cars. We have had dialogues and circles in our homes. We have talked about it around the dinner table, and everything about that goes to the chapter in Deuteronomy, chapter 11, 18 through 21, where it talks about bind them for a sign upon your heart, that they may have frontlets before your eyes, and ye shall teach them to your children, speaking of them when thou sittest in thy house, and when thou walkest by the way. Everything about us must be oozing out of our pores, teaching our kids by example. And every discipline has to deal with what the violation was. And it has to have a message of hope with it. not just for the sake of punishment.
I think this goes beyond what we're talking about children. It's your spouse, but also it's ex-spouse, because so many families are second, they're blended families, and you got to work together as a team. And we all make mistakes. I made a bad mistake not too long ago, and I've asked for forgiveness. And I then recognized the fact that I made a terrible mistake and I hurt somebody, and it wasn't intentional. I think what we've got to do is constantly be learning. That's why I think you guys' books are so important. Cedric, your book, The 4 T's of the Heart, Steps to Successful Relationship, Trust, Truth, Talk, Time. There's so much in this book. I read it. I gave it to Diane to read, and it's really, 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 really powerful. Even if you're not a Christian, even if you're of another faith, or even if you're an agnostic, or even if you're an atheist, read this, because the truth is in here. And there are tools within this book. There are tools within this book that, Travis, you have written, Creating Monsters or Raising Champions. What's Wrong with These Kids by Travis Wortham. Diane is going to be has posted how to buy these books, how to get these books. And I got to tell you, these are important tools. Also, we mentioned earlier, within many of the churches, Celebrate Recovery. Cedric, you're very familiar with that program, I think, from the discussions we've had. That is an amazing program.
It is. It is. It's a program that helps those who have come to that point in their life where they really want to be better, think better, operate better, move forward from where they've been. A lot of us don't understand that we have some core beliefs that have been placed within us, some from a very early age, some from other relationships, some from traumatic experiences, but they become our belief. And it's a lie from the pit of hell. And so going through Celebrate Recovery uncovers those things, get you to see exact and deal with exactly the areas that if you'll be honest. Now, that's the biggest thing. If I can be truthful. What did Shakespeare say? To thine own self be true. If I can be true to myself, know and admit my shortcomings. If I can say, you know what, I am just a sinner, need to be saved by grace, right? God has said, I will forgive you. I'll separate your sins as far as the east is from the west. But you know what? I need to be willing to bring them to you. There's people within Celebrate Recovery who will help you to walk through that process and gain some freedom. A lot of people are imprisoned in themselves, in their own spirit, in their own mind, and there is freedom out there. There is freedom.
Absolutely. I've seen it. I've been through it, experienced it. My wife, Diane, has been an instructor in Celebrate Recovery. She helps people. I think these are most important. If you recognize you got a problem, then work to do something about it. If you're not strong enough, then go to the gym. And if you start working out, then step up a little bit more each time. Start with 10 pounds, then 20 pounds, then 30. Guys, let me tell you something. It takes effort and it takes time, and it takes effort in the family. And what's your priorities? What's your priorities? And let me tell you something. A lot of people tell me, well, my priority is to support my family. That's why I work 2 jobs and I'm never home. Okay, you got to figure out what your priorities are and what you can do to be able to be there at that baseball game, to be there at that football game, to encourage that child for band practice. My parents did it for me.
Yeah,
and I got to tell you. Yeah, Travis.
Yeah, that is surely what is missing. I talk a lot about boys or children raised in places like South Dallas or blighted communities versus those raised in affluent communities like Highland Park. And what I say is both kids in both communities go through pain. They just react to their pains differently. The ones in blighted communities, fathers never showed up for duty, or they were very abusive. And the ones in communities like Highland Park, the father was present, but he was a ship sailing through the night. He came home late after the kids were in bed. He left early before they got out of bed, and all he did was throw his money at them. And they reacted differently in this way. The kids in blighted community pour their pain outward. They sell drugs. They commit assault. They rob. They commit home invasions or carjackings. And the kids in the affluent community, they turn their pain inward. They commit suicide. They use the drugs that the kids in the blighted communities are selling. We've got to get at the heart of this mess and change this thing. And the good news is there are programs all over that are making a difference in families, like what Cedric is doing in relationship, what Pastor Chris is doing over there in South Dallas, changing that community in general. We got answer to this thing. God has answers, and he's going to use us to give intervention strategies to our families and our communities and how we turn this thing around.
You know, we're missing one person, which is Dr. Tony Evans. I got to tell you, I read his book, and he's got two books, one about being a man, one about being a lady. Right. These are very insightful. These are tools. There's people like Greg Laurie. There's people like Tony Evans, Pastor Morris. We go to Gateway. There are great teachers from the ages who have written, and our programs are out there to be able to help you and make you stronger. Like I said, and one of the things Joyce Meyer says, hey, everybody tells me my husband looks so great. He's slim and trim. He didn't start that 3 weeks ago. He's been doing that for 60 plus years. That's an example he set to his children. I've also noticed, for instance, with Pastor Robert Morris, his children are in the ministry. The example that he set, about generosity, the example that he said about community involvement carries generationally just the same as the abuse, the pain. We want to help people to get over the pain. That's why I'm recommending these books, and I'm recommending programs. Don't be a dog barking, be a dog training. I don't know how I pull that one off, but.
And Jim, let me add one more thing. There's a new book out by Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines. It's called Addiction Hurts Everyone. It is a powerful book, and here's what it's about. This book is designed to support the families of the addicted person, because you rarely ever see any help for the family and the friends that surround that addicted person. So y'all want to get a copy of that book. Again, it's called Addiction Hurts Everyone by Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines. So just a thought.
Diane's going to put that up. I want to make a point, too, with my brother Cedric from the military. Gold Star families, a lot of times Gold Star families, when they lose a family member in the active duty in the military, they feel outcast. They feel really set apart. And one of the things, and one of the programs that Diane and I have been involved in is Snowball Express for children of Gold Star families. We've got to seek out the tools to be able to help us, and then we got to use them. You go to the gym and walk around and strut around, you're not going to do any good. You go to the gym, lift the weight, ride the bike, use the exercise cycle, be there 6 days a week. And when you're there, say hi to me, because I'm sitting there at 24 Hour Fitness. We'll be right back after these words from all of our partners. Thank you. Welcome back to the Veterans Impact Show. And thanks to our sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage and Lone Star Wealth Strategies. Now, let's continue this great conversation. Well, I've got to bring Cedric, is a good old Navy term. I've got to bring this program back into the dock here. This has been an absolutely fantastic discussion. First of all, Cedric, I'd like to ask you as military and myself, I've said this many times, what would you say to a young man or woman who's looking at the military as a start in life? Or maybe they're not even thinking about it, but it's an option that they've got. What would you say to them, Cedric?
I would say the military was one of the best decisions that I had, that I made. I was not prepared for. I graduated high school and had no plan. My goal in life was to graduate high school, get a job, and that was it. I quickly realized that I needed more. I wanted an education. I wanted a career. And I was in college. I was going to school at Mountain View, one of Dallas County community colleges, and I couldn't afford it. So I needed to go somewhere where somebody could pay me and I could learn something, because I wasn't looking to run an illegal lifestyle, and because I had been brought up to work. And the military taught me discipline to this day. As a matter of fact, at age 61, I feel that I benefit more now than I did when I was in the military. But I got some great training. I went to some great places. Gave me some great discipline. And if we do it the right way, it works out quite well. So I'd say it's an area that people can look into, whether you're looking to go enlisted or you're looking to go officers program. Research it, get some background, talk to somebody who's done it, and then go for it, because it's worthwhile.
You want me to have a look at it?
What you don't know can hurt you. And let me tell you, the 4 years I spent in the Navy, boot camp was one of the best things. People have heard many stories about it. Turned my life around. Now, Travis,
Yes.
you were basically in an area of law enforcement as a veteran. What would you say to a young man or woman who says, gee, I've graduated from high school, I want to go to maybe college, but I want to be in law enforcement? What would you say to that young man or woman?
Number one, it can be a very gratifying work, but it's a thankless work. There are not too many accolades or posters or certificates being posted on the wall, because you're dealing with the dynamics of people's lives. And there's so much baggage there that the challenges are endless. At the same time, one of the things I used to share with my staff is one thing to make an impact on a kid's life who was a pretty good kid anyway. He just had a bad experience and got caught up. But when you make an impact on a child's life who's seen nothing but all the ugliness that life brings, you've done something special. And Jim, you know, I've got several kids I mentor today in their 40s who I had when they were around that 17 or 16. And we have maintained relationships, and these were some of the worst kids God had on the earth. And yet, I mean, the drugs, the gangs, the whole bit. But we saw what God saw. And that's what I say to you. When we look at kids, we have to see what Jesus sees. When I think about when Jesus saw Zacchaeus in that climbing that sycamore tree, Jesus went out of his way because Zacchaeus went out of his. He saw his pain and wanted to do something special for him. When Mary ran to Elizabeth while she was pregnant, and the person that answered that door said, Elizabeth, Mary is here. No, Elizabeth said, more than Mary is here. You got Jesus in you. So how is it that we began to see the pain that the people who come into our experiences bring and be able to have an impact on that? I think I've said before, I've gone into schools and I've told principals, give me 8 to 10 of the worst boys you got in this school, because I know where they're coming from. I see their pain, and I take my needle straight to the core of their pain, and we began to see change.
Without a doubt. And there are so many men and women in not only our community, but across the nation. Admiral Pat Walsh, who is now president of Cristo Rey here in Dallas, in one of the toughest neighborhoods of Dallas, college preparatory, 100% of their kids graduated from high school and went on. The military, only about 23% of the kids can get into the military because of academics and physical. We've got to change what we're doing with our kids and be involved, not only as parents, but as community members. We've got to take a proactive, and we've got to set the example. And I want to do that every day. Even though I may make a mistake, I want to do that every day. And if you see the t-shirt that I've got on and Diane's got on, we're instructors with Sea Cadets, which is the Navy's version of the ROTC. I got to tell you, we're going to be there this afternoon at the Joint Reserve Base with those kids, speaking into their lives about the problems, the mistakes we've made, and how they can do better. Step up the challenge, be a mentor, tune in, join in, be a part of a movement to bring this nation back together. I love that movie that Greg Laurie has put out about his childhood experience and how he basically was baptized. And Greg Laurie is one of the great pastors in the United States right now. You can turn your life around. You can change. You can ease the pain and do away with the pain. And it takes effort. It takes pain to get rid of the pain. I told somebody the other day, you want to get rid of the arthritis pain, go to the gym and exercise. And they thought I was crazy. Then I told them about Carl, who had arthritis so bad he ran 5 miles a day twice. All right, guys, let me close with a prayer. Lord God, we are so eternally grateful for you and what all you have done for our nation and for the hedge of protection around our veterans and first responders as they run into the fire instead of away from the fire. God, we thank you, and we thank you for the veterans that are leading this nation and setting the example. We thank you for men like Travis and Cedric who teach and who grow and who help us to gain strength in our family. Thank you, Lord God, for these many, many blessings of these people. We thank you, and dear God, bring this nation back together, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. Guys, this has been a blessing. Thank you so much for being part of this today. Let's do it again. All right? This is the Veterans Impact Show.